It's just we're just gonna wait, and wait till like people come in. Well, shit. Okay. I mean, if no one's gonna show up, maybe I should just end it. Yo, so okay, should we just start or should we just what the heck? Yeah, YouTube notifications don't really work as they should. So yeah, unfortunately. All right, let's give it a couple more minutes. Just a couple more minutes, and then we're gonna get into the actual series, or get into the whole point of the live stream. Because I said I was gonna do this a while back, and I'm hoping that I'll be able to cover the whole thing. Because I might not have that much time. Yeah, yeah, I heard Batwoman's back. Batwoman's back. In fact, even the ratings are just as they were. In fact, at some point it might even be worse. Actually, just out of curiosity, let me just check real quick. Just check real quick. What's the ratings for Batwoman? Just real quick. Just get rid of this. There you go. Okay, let's look at you. What have you done so far? Season three. Uh, did they not put up the ratings yet? It's weird. They usually have the ratings almost immediately. Where is it? Come on, where are you? Let's let's see if we can search for it. Hmm. Yeah, here we go. Let's see. There we go. There we go. Oh yeah, okay. Here it is. Here it is. Fucking ads. Ooh. Oh boy, that's not good. That is not good. Hold on. Let me just bring something up real quick. Oh, for fuck's sake. Boy, already off to a bad start. Uh, where is it? Here we go. Okay, let me just bring something up real quick. Then I'm gonna show you just how bad the ratings actually are. So okay, three. Okay, this is not good. Absolutely not good. What I missed? Not much. Not much. We just started. So just real quick before we get to the whole point of the live stream, just let me just share this real quick. Let me stop the screen. There. So yeah, so as you can see, what you have in front of you is the season two ratings. Season two. Let me get rid okay, there we go. Season two ended at 413,000 people watching the finale, which is awful. Because normally what happens in TV shows is that usually it's the premiere and the finale that always get the most ratings because people want to see how it starts and people want to see the ending. It'll start to dip and then go up somewhere during the middle, but these two are the ones that always have the highest ratings. But you can see for Batwoman season two, that wasn't the case. The highest rating it ever got was this episode, episode three. This was the highest rating out of all of them. And the finale is at 413,000, which isn't good. So let's take a look at season three, the premiere. But before we do, keep in mind the premiere for season two came in at 659,000 people, maybe a little bit over 659,000 people, right? Let's look at, actually, before we do, look at where it started and now look at where it ended. Premiere for season three. Premiere for season three. Look at this, 469,000 people. Now, you might think, okay, that's higher than 413, but again, look at the premiere. Season two, the premiere is at 659,000, over a 28% drop when it comes to ratings for the premiere of this season. And like I said, look at where it started at season two and look at where it ended. So think about it like this. If it started at 469,000, where do you think it's going to end by episode 13? It's going to severely dip when it comes to the ratings. Now, if this isn't the last season, if this honestly is not the last season of the show, I would be really shocked. And it will once again tell you that the CW does not actually give a shit. They don't give a shit about ratings. They don't give a shit if they're burning money by investing it into a show that nobody's watching, so they can't make money off advertisements. They don't care. They officially do not care. And another thing you might want to keep in mind is that look at the demographic. It's at 0.10, so that's at least 100,000 people watching. But in the 18 to 49 demographic, that's the one that they want to get because those are the ones that usually buy merchandise. The premiere for season three, only 80,000. This isn't good. These are terrible numbers. Terrible numbers. Especially when you consider that the premiere had over 150,000, maybe. Over 100, at least 150,000 people in the 18 to 49 demographic. This season, maybe a little over 80,000 or just 80,000. These are awful numbers. Terrible numbers. But then again, it is the CW. So I don't think any of us are really shocked by this. I don't think any of us are actually shocked by this at all. Just just awful. This shows bleeding viewers. If somehow this isn't the last season, they'll probably break the lowest viewer records for the CW. That's true. And I'm willing to bet it will. I thought it was going to happen for season three. I thought it was going to happen for, or excuse me, I thought it was going to happen for season two. But it seems like that's not the case. They somehow the ratings kept going up. I still have no idea how that happened, but it is what it is. So yeah. Anyway, let's see what else. Okay, so let's get to the actual point of the stream. So if you remember, I reacted to two videos in particular, which was by let's see, it was Seth, Swag, and Clyde. I reacted to a video that they made, which was over an hour and a half long. Now, I said that in that video, I had to, or I said in a previous live stream that in that video, I had to limit what I wanted to say because I wanted to keep the video that you were going to watch on the channel from being too long. And it ended up being at least 2 hours long, which is insane because it took fucking forever to finally upload. And not to mention it took forever to record because things kept going wrong. I remember I recorded it the first time, and something happened to where I had to end it, and I had to go take care of something. And then I started recording it again, but then something else came up, so I had to end that, and then I had to record it for a third time, and then finally I finished it, but then something went wrong, so I had to film it again, and then I finally was able to put it out. So that's good. Finally managed to put it out. And like I said, it took forever to upload because it's over 2 hours long. So it's anyway. I said that we were going to watch those videos live so that I'd be able to actually, give you my full thoughts without having to worry about time. Although I don't know if I want to keep the stream going for way too long. So what I'm going to do is instead of reacting to both of those videos, I'm just going to react to one, and then I'm going to do another live stream where we're just going to watch that one video. We're going to watch that one video, the hour and a half long video from beginning to end, hopefully. And I'll be able to give you guys my thoughts as it's happening. But for now, we're just gonna watch the one that Seth did in response to the one that he really released before, where he talks about Boruto. So we're gonna be watching that one. But before we do, I just want to show you this video because I think it's actually pretty important because it pertains to a point that it pertains to a point that I, I've come to accept when it comes to stories, which is it pertains to the whole concept of deciding to kill off a character. Now, for me personally, while I don't have a problem in general with killing off characters, in fact, sometimes I'll get pissed when writers decide not to kill off characters, and then they'll come up with some bullshit reason as to how they managed to survive, and it's just after a while it just got annoying. So yeah, I sometimes do get pissed when characters don't get killed off, even when it makes perfect sense, because I think it adds a depth to the story. I think it makes your story more memorable, in my opinion. But again, it has to also be done well. You can't just kill off characters just for the sake of killing off characters. In fact, I think that Game of Thrones, one of the reasons why it was so well known is that you is that you remember all the characters that died, but the characters' deaths still made sense. You know what I mean? They still made sense. So I wanted to show you this video because for me personally, I think that while I don't have a problem with killing off characters, I just think that there are some characters that probably should be exempt for that, from that, excuse me. Because if you do kill them off, you risk fundamentally changing the very formula of your story. You know what I mean? Like there are some characters who just like you just don't touch them. You don't touch them because they are such a big part of the DNA of your story. Like we talked about The Last of Us, right? Or at least I talked about The Last of Us. I used to on this channel before it eventually got kind of exhausting. So when they decided to kill off Joel, one of the biggest problems that people had is that his death made no goddamn sense. It felt so contrived. It just felt like it felt like they killed the character just because they wanted to kill the character and they didn't think about whether or not the death made any sense. But I would posit the argument that they shouldn't have killed the character at all. Because one thing that people liked about that franchise is the relationship between those two characters, the father daughter relationship between Joel and Ellie. That's what people really loved about the story. And that's what people wanted to see when they came back. And when you decided to kill off the character, you already alienated a bunch of people just on that alone. So I honestly think that even if it was done well, I still think you would have lost a lot of people because people just didn't want to go back to a series that didn't have that relationship between the two. And even if you were going to make a sequel that focuses on completely different characters, at the very least, the knowledge that Joel and Ellie are still out there would have been enough. And this story is just this installment is just going to focus on these characters, and we're going to tell you their story. But Joel and Ellie are still out there. They're still, of course, they're out there. They're surviving in this world. But for now, we just want to tell you what these characters' story are, or these characters' story is. Excuse me. So but I think this video explains it perfectly. I think when it comes to killing off characters. Share the audio. Okay, there we go. So let's go ahead and watch the video. Let me just get my headphones on real quick. And I also I do want to get your guys' thoughts on this when it comes to like what do you think about killing off characters just in general? Like, do you think it's a good idea? Do you think it's not a good idea? And just in general, I want to know what your guys' thoughts are on this. So let's watch the video.
Generally, falling down an endless chasm is the kind of death that usually a villain experiences, leading cause of death amongst villains.
Let's talk about killing iconic characters. When is it okay? When is it a horrible mistake?
I think it's really important if you want to retain the audience for a franchise, how you kill off an iconic movie character. Absolutely critical. And there are places in movie history.
And I see for me when he's talking about movie characters, but I think that also extends to TV characters, novel characters, or comic book characters, or just even video game characters. I just mentioned Joel from The Last of Us. I think that yeah, it's when you decide to kill off a character, especially if you know this is a character that is beloved by a lot of people, especially millions of people, you you're already going to run the risk of losing a lot of people because, like I said, one of the big things that they love about this game or book or movie or TV show is that character, and to see them die is just it's going to make them never see the franchise the same way ever again. So I don't have a problem with killing off any character. However, if it's a very iconic character, it has to be done very, very well. I agree. It has to be done well. It's like for me, the biggest problem a lot of the times is when it comes to the way they kill off characters. It's just that for me, it wasn't done well. And I also think that, like I said, if you even if it's done well, and I know this isn't really fair to the people writing it, but there are people who associate that character with this franchise or this series. So you take them away, you lose them forever because they're not interested in the character because they're not really interested in the world because they loved that character. They want to see that character. Some people are going to be upset, but true fans will stick around. At the end of the day, they're telling a story, and some characters need to go. I agree that some characters do need to go, but again, I feel like you have to be very, very careful as to how you decide to make them go. Sometimes you could just say that the characters are still there. Like you could just write them off. You can say they're off doing their own thing, and this story that you're going to be watching is just focus on this person. We want to tell this person's story, and so you decide to write them off and say that they're off either living their own lives, or you could even say that they maybe eventually died, but we won't show it because again, it's once you have that image in your head, it never goes away. And I think that for a lot of people, it's the same with look at a character like Han Solo, which I think he's going to actually bring up here in this video, and look at a character like Luke Skywalker. A lot of people just didn't want to see those characters die, even if it was done well. It's they don't want that image in their head because once it's there, it never goes away. And it's just that when it comes to those two, it was especially worse because how they were killed off was fucking stupid. It made no goddamn sense. Like you not only killed the character, you insulted that character while doing it. And because of that, a lot of people felt like the people in charge that just had no respect for this character. Okay, well, if you have no respect for this character, then I have no respect for you because the fact that you're in charge of this, you now have a responsibility to this. And if you think that's unfair, if you don't want that, then you can leave. Let someone else take over. Let someone else take that responsibility. All right, let's continue.
Where it's been done right, and there are places where it's been done completely wrong and it's been bungled.
Mm-hmm.
It's upsetting to me. I mean, first of all, the death of an iconic fictional character is already upsetting just on its face. Let's talk about a case in which it was done incredibly well.
Mm-hmm.
In Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan,
Fantastic movie, by the
Leonard
way.
Nimoy's character of Spock, who he'd played, for decades by then, and you're now killing off this character. You're killing off Spock. It's handled so well. It's not a wasteful death. Spock dies in an act of self-sacrifice, trying to save the crew of the Enterprise, which he'd done many times before and skirted death. Now he's, dying in the engine room of the Enterprise, facing his best friend, Jim Kirk. Because the important thing to remember, and this is something for screenwriters to keep in mind, is that the death of the character is not about the person doing the dying. It's about the reaction of the characters that love the character that's going through and experiencing their death. And so what we got to experience as an audience was two longtime friends, and in an act of self-sacrifice, Spock is dying, and he gets to say his final words to Kirk. And Kirk gets to see his friend. And in addition to that, that scene is followed up with a funeral with some glorious music. And I mean, we didn't know at the time that they were setting up a sequel, Star Trek 3,
Yeah.
The Search for Spock, which kind of gives it away that Spock might be coming back. But
Yeah.
be that as it may, no one's ever dead in fiction.
True.
But the way that death was handled with handled with such respect.
I also think that that's very, very important. And it's because, it's like he said, no character is ever truly dead because the writer can always insert some way for the character to come back. So it's like, okay, I know this is going to be a bit of a touchy subject, but since we're going to talk about it anyway, look at what happened with Kurama and Boruto right now. Like, yeah, people are upset that he's gone. Me, I was a little upset when it happened, but I've kind of gotten over it because the chapter where it happened was, like years ago. I think it came out last year or earlier this year, and then we only just got to see it in the anime now. It's like, yeah, it's upsetting, but to me, it's like a lot of people who say that the character's gone and the character's never coming back. Or it's like I've always said no, that's not necessarily the case because remember, the writer can always insert a way for a character to come back. Like that's always happened. Like okay, if you want an example, look at Orochimaru in Naruto. People when he first died, people thought, "Holy shit, he's dead. That's it." And then later on, it was revealed that no, he didn't die. He was in Sasuke somehow, and he tried to take over his body, and then Itachi sealed him away with the Totsuka blade. But then, and you thought, okay, well, that has to be it. He was sealed away. He's gone, right? And then it turns out no. Then it's revealed that there's a part of him that's sealed into the curse mark, and then it could be used to bring him back should something ever happen to him. Kind of like what happened with Voldemort, with the Horcruxes, and how he used them to bring himself back. So it's like people who say that Kurama's gone, he can never come back. To me, I always say no. That's not the case because then again, like I said, the writer can always find some way. If the writer wants the character back, the writer will find some way to bring them back. That's always been the case. It's just a matter of whether or not the writer wants the character to stay dead, or whether or not the character only intends for the character to stay. Or excuse me, I said character. The writer intends for the character to stay dead for now, but then will come back in some way later, down the line in the story. Now, if Kurama's going to stay dead, then he'll never come back. But if Kishimoto has plans for him to come back later, he's going to find some way to bring him back. So that's why whenever I see videos of people saying that, he's gone, he's never going to come back, you should put it out of your mind. I always disagree with that because the thing is, you don't know. You don't know because they can always introduce something. Just like how he mentioned it right here with Star Trek. People thought Leonard Nimoy, his character Spock, was dead. Writers found a way to bring him back. And again, it's just you never know. That's the thing. You never really know.
Respect for all the characters involved. It was satisfying in the sense that we experienced the love that James T. Kirk has for his friend Spock. and then the reactions of people who loved Spock and how they were affected by his death. His death had meaning. Conversely, one of the worst deaths ever handled in movie history was the death of Han Solo in The Force Awakens. Many people were upset with The Last Jedi and how Luke Skywalker's character was handled, but the thing that lost it for me was Han Solo's death in The Force Awakens.
Mm-hmm.
It's not
Stupid.
done in any sort of act of self-sacrifice. There isn't a moment where other characters can react to Han Solo's death. He's simply, dispensed with by his own son, Ben Solo, with a lightsaber to the heart, and then falls down an endless chasm. Generally, falling down an endless chasm is the kind of death that usually a villain experiences.
Yeah.
Leading cause of death amongst villains. I'm sure there's an infographic somewhere on the internet that will tell you this, because that's how the Emperor died in the original Return of the Jedi episode 6.
Well,
that's how villains go out.
As we know now, he didn't die. Somehow he survived. He survived being falling down an energy shaft, being vaporized. And even if he somehow survived that, how the hell did he survive the Death Star exploding? And if he somehow survived that, how did he survive living in space for God knows how long? It's just, it's stupid. It's fucking stupid.
Falling into an endless chasm, you don't really see the bloodiness. It's off screen.
He talked about how the Emperor in the original trilogy, but I would offer another example. Remember in Beauty and the Beast, Gaston fell down an endless chasm where you don't actually get to see the death, but it's pretty obvious he's dead. And let's see, is there another example? Oh yeah, the witch. The Wicked Witch from not the Wicked Witch, the Evil Queen, excuse me, from Snow White, fell down a chasm, died. Let's see, who else? Who else that I can think of that fell into yeah, those are the only characters that I can kind of think of at the moment.
That's how a villain goes out. And to have Han Solo
if you have examples,
and not have a last
let me know
moment
about
with
them.
Chewbacca, his loyal friend, to not have a last moment with Princess Leia or Luke Skywalker, the audience was completely betrayed of any meaning for that death, was betrayed by not being able to see our beloved characters who just, if you're watching all the movies in order, a few hours ago was alive and well and saving the universe. And my God, if there was a child and we had just finished watching Return of the Jedi, I don't know that I'd want to skip to the next movie to see what happens.
No, just completely forget
because what happened, how the character
completely
of Han Solo
forget
was
the sequel
treated
trilogy. Just
in
completely
his
forget
death
it
in The Force
exists.
Awakens was offensive to me and told me that this franchise was in the wrong hands. Because you can't take a character like that and have him go out that way. It's not a bad thing, and this used to be, yes, it's a Hollywood trope. Riding off into the sunset was a fine way to go.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
Right? It worked for Shane. It worked for many iconic Hollywood films. We're going to ride off into the sunset. Maybe we don't need to see the death. We can imagine other adventures with that character, but their story has been told and they can ride off into the sunset. But if you're actually going to kill an iconic character, it needs to be done with some level of respect. And every way that could have been handled in a much better way, which would be to have some final words. They could have even done it in that movie. He could have been mortally wounded by Ben, thinking he could have turned his son back from the dark side to the light. And he was mortally wounded. And you can imagine a scene with Luke Skywalker and Princess Leia over, a dying Han Solo. And what the words that might have been said, we'll never see that now.
No.
So I'm just...
We're especially not going to see it
I'm just offended by that. And so I think that's...
Since Harrison Ford has
two
pretty much
cases
said
of
he's never
Spock
coming back to
and
play
his
this character.
sacrifice in Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan, just go watch that scene. And then you compare it with the scene of Han Solo meaningless without even a funeral. And even when Rey returns, and there's the knowledge that Han Solo is dead, she just goes to hug Rey, not like Chewbacca, who she's
Yeah,
known
a
for
character
decades.
that she
That I
just
don't
met
understand.
a few days ago.
So I really question the thinking of some of the people in charge who are overseeing some of these beloved franchises, um, and how that affected not just children, who these movies are really made for children, or for older dudes like myself who saw the classic films as a kid and would at least like these characters to be treated with some level of respect. George Lucas famously consulted a child psychologist when he toyed with the idea of making Darth Vader the father of the hero of his movie,
Hmm.
right? He was, I don't know, I want to see how this is going to affect kids. Was there any vetting done by how this might affect the audience if you're
No.
going to handle this death in that way? And in each of the sequel trilogy movies, the deaths of the characters are handled with this, not using what I would consider to be a respectful death, which is there needs to be someone to react to that death that is meaningful in that character's life. And of course, Spock's best friend in the universe was Jim Kirk. So when he made that sacrifice, it was meaningful. And Han Solo's sacrifice seemed like a waste. Something else that occurs to me also, related to Star Wars. Yes, a recurring topic in conversations that I will have with you and that I have with my friends often. Maybe it's a form of therapy. But what was interesting was that when George Lucas was mapping out the story for The Empire Strikes Back, he realized that the audience would never believe
That's
that
true.
you would kill Luke Skywalker.
No, because they already
So
knew he
you
was going to
have
be in the
this
third movie.
lightsaber
So,
duel at the end of The Empire Strikes Back, and it's Luke Skywalker fighting Darth Vader. Where's the tension?
hmm,
Because we already know that he's making a trilogy. You're
yeah,
not going to kill off Luke Skywalker.
hmm.
So there's really no drama or tension in
So
that
you
scene.
find
So
another
what
way
Lucas
to
did, he's like,
inject
okay,
tension.
since the audience is not going to believe that I would kill Luke Skywalker,
Hmm.
what if the real drama, the real threat is that Luke might turn to the dark side? And because he doesn't listen to Yoda's advice, he doesn't complete his training, he goes off as not a fully trained Jedi and faces his greatest nemesis, who he then learns at the end of after losing that fight, that it's his father. Could he turn to the dark side? And George Lucas believed that the audience might believe that he would turn to the dark side. And therein lies the tension. Whereas many of the lightsaber duels that take place in the sequel trilogy are
Bad.
kind of meaningless.
Yeah, they're terrible. They're awful.
So it's important for these
not
characters.
not only are they just meaningless and just awful, they're just they're so poorly done. Like I've lost count how many videos I've seen of people just completely deconstructing the choreography of that fight. There's one famous one where they just go over the fight, the throne room scene. You know, the one that everyone loves praising in the Last Jedi. They say, "Oh, this is awesome." There's there's one character, or excuse me, there's someone. I think it was a stuntman, if I remember correctly. Like he's an actual Hollywood stuntman who looked at that scene and just completely broke it down and exposed just how poorly made it is. And it was I didn't really find it all that interesting when I watched it in the theater, but when I saw that video where he broke it down, it was like, holy shit! I didn't know it was this bad. But yeah, I mean, it's that just goes to show you that they barely put any thought into making these movies. And I think that what makes these so well known is that people just they just they completely oversell things, and that's why there are so many things in Hollywood from movies in today's day and age, that when you watch it, you don't get what it is that people like so much about it, because it's not really all that interesting. And then when you hear someone, especially if it's someone who is, a professional, break it down and showing you how awful it is, it makes you hate it even more. And you wonder, okay, what is it about this that people like so much? And it's just, you realize, oh, it's people who just see something that looks pretty, and they just immediately start overhyping it. It's the same thing that happened with the Transformers films, to where a lot of people were praising and going, "Oh my god, these movies are awesome," and then you watch them and you realize that they're empty movies with just spectacle. Like, that's it, and the spectacle isn't even all that good. It's just a spectacle. Which, look, if that's all you're looking for in something, that's fine, nothing wrong with that. But to praise it as being great, to praise it as being absolutely just the best thing you've ever seen, it's like, okay, now you're taking it too far, because now at this point you're going to have to quantify it. You're going to have to show me, you're going to have to tell me, what is it in your eyes that makes this so great, other than just the spectacle. I need more than just it looks good on screen.
And I would say that if you're a Disney shareholder, you probably care even more. If you want a franchise to continue to exist and be profitable, and you want to sell more Han Solo shirts and whatnot,
Well, they're definitely not doing it
that the
now,
deaths of
because
iconic movie characters be treated with respect. And it's an opportunity not just for the fictional characters that love that character in that world to say goodbye, it's an opportunity for the audience to say goodbye as well.
Reminds me of a film I watched recently, I think, or late 90s, the early 2000s, and it's about a Hollywood producer, and it shows a test screening. And Sean Penn is one of the characters in the film, playing him. He is Sean Penn in the movie. And it's the famous thing of, at the end,
well, it's fine. There's nothing great. Sure, it looks great, but that's not all. The way they did Musa in the end was so atrocious. Well, the thing is, I when it comes to Demon Slayer, if I'm being honest, I never really got into Demon Slayer. Like, I never really got into it. I I saw some episodes. I think I got to like episode 9 or something, when they were fighting the two characters with the arrow things. Like, that's kind of where I stopped, because it's like, I don't get what it is about this that people love so much. I mean, this is fine, but people are praising it to high heaven, to the point where even the Demon Slayer movie, which I did see, I got a chance to see it in the theaters, because anime movies don't really show up here where I am a lot. So I usually go watch them whenever I have the chance. So I watched it, and I thought, okay, this has fantastic animation, but I mean, the story isn't really. I mean, I liked, what was his name, Rengoku. Yeah, I him I liked. I did kind of like him, even though I thought it was a little annoying at first. But I grew to like him, and but it's just overall everything else is like, other than the really fantastic animation, I'm not really seeing what so many people like about this the story. Like, I mean, it's fine. I'm not saying it's bad. It's okay, but people are out there praising it like it's the best thing ever, to the point where now Demon Slayer is getting to the point where it's, or it used to, because it ended, where it's outsold like One Piece even. Even though I think that One Piece is also another series that kind of gets overhyped a little bit. I mean, I like it, I do, but it's another one where I think that people kind of overhype it. Let's see here. No, I haven't seen it yet. I haven't been paying attention to Nintendo lately. Just kind of checked out, if I'm being honest. So, okay, let's continue. Where were we?
he gets killed, but does his dog. So they show it to this test audience, and they're horrified. And it's a horrific scene, it's awful. And so that is the big dilemma in the film. Do we keep that scene in? And I think Robert De Niro plays the Hollywood producer. I think it's called like What the Hell Happened or something like that. It's got an all-star cast. But where I'm going with this is test screenings and audience feedback. If you feel this way and other fans do as well, why was nothing done? Why was the respect given to one character dying, not so for the other? And
there's actually interesting documentary that I just saw about Alan Ladd Jr. called Laddie.
Mm.
It's actually made by his daughter, and of course, Alan Ladd Jr. was instrumental in getting Star Wars made. But he famously gave a lot of notes to movies, like The Exorcist and whatnot. Like he would give very small notes. He wasn't like telling filmmakers what to do. He was more like, okay, we're watching this in a screening room, and like, okay, but there's this element missing. Sometimes you know, it's important to take that step back. Um,
Hmm.
and I do believe
That's
that
true.
test
And
audiences.
it's what he just said. I think that that's also pretty accurate to what's going on, because sometimes you feel like, you producers, they're hired to look over this project, which is the movie, and they hire directors, they hire screenwriters, they hire actors, they hire set designers, they hire all these people to make your movie. And instead of letting them, make the movie, you decide to get involved, and uh, you decide to just completely change it to the point where it's completely unrecognizable to what it was before. And sometimes that can be a good thing, because sometimes what it was before is complete shit, and they help turn it into at least something that's good. But a lot of times, like, you hope that the producer would take a step back, and not and if they want to be involved, that's fine, but involved to an extent. Because remember, you hired the director, you hired them to direct this movie, so why not just let them do their jobs? And instead they get to the point where, no, 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 let me tell you what happens in the story. No, this has to happen in the story, this has to happen. And again, in some cases that's true. Like, for example, let's say if you're in charge of a trilogy, you are telling the person in charge of making the first film, okay, you got to understand, this thing needs to happen and this thing needs to happen, because there's something that happens in the second movie that connects to what happens in this movie, and then the third movie connects to the second movie, which is connected to the first movie. And it's like, in that case, okay, that's fine, I get it. But if you're just making one movie and you have the story you want to be told, let the director tell the story, because that's what they're good at. That's what you hired them for. And let them, of course, hire work with the casting directors to find the right people for the job. Let them find the right set designers, screenwriters, VFX artists, just all of the people that are going to work together to bring to life your movie. And there comes a point where you have to realize, okay, it's time for me to sort of step back and let these people do their jobs. But a lot of producers, and a lot of times, they're not creative people. They're not creative people, so they don't understand the creative process. They don't understand what goes into actually making a story. They don't understand character arcs. They don't understand character development. Uh, they don't understand when to have exposition and when not to have exposition. They don't know when to. They don't know that there are sometimes moments where you have to take certain scenes out, because even though they're good, they don't really add anything to the story, like anything important. Like, if you took it out, the story still flows perfectly from point A to point B, and you don't really miss anything. And then if you really want the scene out, then just put out like a director's cut, where you've got every single scene that's ever been shot. And if someone wants to see it, that they could just buy the director's cut and they can just watch it. But as opposed to the one that's going to be out in theaters, it needs to be a movie that flows from point A to point B. And if there's a scene in there that you think is going to sort of slow down the pacing of the movie, and you feel like it's a scene that could be cut out and nothing would be lost, then you think, okay, well, I got to make the right decision. Even though I like the scene and I think it's a great scene, you should just take it out to save up on time. Like, for example, look at Lord of the Rings. I would say Fellowship is the only movie that, like, some of the scenes that they cut out, while I do still like them, and I will still always watch the extended versions over the theatrical versions. When it comes to the theatrical cut of Lord of the Rings, I feel like that's the only one that flows beautifully from point A to point B, where where those extra scenes in the extended editions aren't really 100% necessary, even though I still love every single one of them. But when it comes to Return of the King and Two Towers, while I do still think they're good, they're well made, there's a lot of them that you feel like are kind of missing. Like, just to give you an example, in Two Towers, in the theatrical cut, they cut out the scene where you see the Ents attacking Isengard. But in the extended version, it's there. In the theatrical version, they're just there, and then it cuts immediately to them breaking the dam, and then you see Isengard being flown, being taken over by the water that was being held back. And to me, I feel like that was maybe needed, at least for me personally, because I feel like the extended versions of Two Towers and Return of the King are the definitive versions. Because especially in Return of the King, they cut out the scene where Saruman dies, where he falls from the cliff and gets impaled on the water wheel. And it also shows you the death of Grima because he gets shot by Legolas's arrow, and that wasn't in the theatrical version. And so, if you're watching the theatrical version, you're going to be wondering, wait, what happened to Sauron and what happened to Grima? They never show you, but in the extended version, it's there. And Fellowship of the Ring, I feel like, is the only one that you can watch. You can get the full story with either the theatrical or the extended versions. Even though I'll pick the extended versions because for me, that's the definitive story from the beginning of Fellowship all the way to the end of Return of the King. Let's see here. What do you think of companies that are releasing on Switch games like Hitman 3 Control, Guardians of the Galaxy, Dying Light 2, and Kingdom Hearts as cloud-only versions? I think it's a stupid move. They should definitely release it on physical because some people actually prefer the physical versions and not the digital only, because digital can always be like the company could always screw with them because you never know.
Test audiences can,
But they can't screw with the digital
help
version.
improve a
Excuse me,
film.
the physical version.
I know that, for example, I mean, they call them focus groups. Quentin Tarantino has a more colorful term for focus groups. He calls them fuckus groups. But I know I said I wouldn't swear. But I think that it's important to to keep those kinds of feelings in mind. There's a lot of feelings wrapped up in an audience's experience with this. That's why I think these death scenes are so critical. The approach to it. I'm just surprised that the legacy characters from the previous trilogy, which if you're doing a marathon, are just were treated so poorly, that there wasn't as much thought given to that. People have invested. We're talking about the movies here, but also we're also talking about there are comic book stories about these characters. There are stories I've made up in my mind about these characters. Yes, when I played with action figures when I was a kid, there are stories we made up in our heads. There are novels. There are radio plays. There are all sorts of stories that these iconic characters have participated in, and we've experienced those. There's a lot invested. So the callousness with which that was done is shocking to me to this day.
I think that's it. So yeah, I mean he said it right there. It's so that's just my. I thought it was important that I showed you because I really wanted to talk about just the very concept of deciding to kill characters and whether or not like whether or not it should even be done at all. And he talked about how if you're going to do it, it's got to be done right. And he also mentioned something that I think is also important, which is yeah, it's a trope, but if you are going to do a continuation of a story, then why not just have the characters that you already know just off to the side and say that, oh, they're off doing their own thing, But like I said, this story is going to be focused on these new characters, and just tell that story. Just tell that story, and I think everything would be fine. Now, granted, the story still needs to be good, and for me, it's just like I feel like that's sort of the mistake that some people make because they think that well, people are going to come here for the characters that they already know, and while that's true, I feel like if you still tell a good story, there are going to be people who are going to stick around, who are definitely going to stick around because even if the story doesn't have the characters that they know, because they love this world that you created, they'll look at any story, even if it doesn't involve the what is it, the legacy characters. Like for example, look at Star Wars: The Expanded Universe before it became Legends. There's plenty of stories there that have nothing to do with Luke, Han, or Leia, or Chewbacca, or what is it? Who else? But anyway, like Admiral Akbar, Mon Mothma, like none of those characters are there. But the stories are still loved. They still love them because they're good stories, and it takes place in this world that Lucas built back in '77, or that we saw in '77. I'm sure he worked on the movie long before then. And it's to me, it's just to me, if you go into this thinking that you need the legacy characters, then all that tells me is that you're not all that confident in your story because you yourself have said that you think that, well, not said, but you thought that you need the legacy characters because you think, how else am I going to get them? Well, you get them by telling a good story. That's how. And saying that you need these characters that are already popular to push your story, all that tells me is, again, you don't really have that much confidence in your own story. Because if you did, you could have said, okay, those characters are off doing their own thing, and we're just gonna tell this story, and we're that confident in it. We're that confident in the story that we can tell it without any of the legacy characters. Cloud, so you can only play it online, no possibility of downloading. Well, that's even dumber. Like I what that's just stupid. It's like it reminds me of the what was it? What did Sony do? What was it called? PlayStation Now or something? Where you play a game, or no, not Sony. There was another company that did this. Google, I think it was Google that did this. What was it called? Where you play games online, and oh, Stadia. That's what it was. It reminds me of Stadia. So it's like w- that's just that's stupid. This is dumb. This is absolutely stupid. And so let me ask you: Is that why people? Is that why I'm seeing people mad at Nintendo lately? Is this why? Because they did this? And if that's the case, then I get it because this is dumb. So yeah, when it comes to that whole thing, those are my thoughts. And let's see, we're getting close to the 1 hour mark. Do I have time? Do I have time to get into the others? Um, I don't know. It's close to 5 where I am, and the video in and of itself is like it's like 39 minutes long. And if we keep pausing to talk, then who knows how long we could go. Mm, I don't know. You know what? I'll tell you what. Let me end this here. And tomorrow we're going to be doing another live stream. Which is tomorrow where we'll watch both of those videos because I'm pretty sure because tomorrow I don't have anything. Tomorrow I don't have anything. I'm completely free tomorrow, so I'll be able to go live and I'll be able to go over both of those videos. Here's like 9 a.m. Yeah, it's five in the afternoon here. It's 5 o'clock. So yeah, that's why I. Not to mention, there's other people in the house, and if we're going to be talking about Porto, I already know I'm going to raise my voice, and I don't want to. I don't want to bother anyone. So yeah, till tomorrow. So again, big thank you to everyone who did join. I hope you do join me for the stream tomorrow. And hope to see you then. Bye for now.